You didn't hear about this? The resident who was doing ultrasounds on men on their genitals in his apartment.
I beg your pardon?
Oh my God.
This sounds nefarious.
An ex-UC health doctor guilty for genital ultrasounds in his apartment. Rudell Saunders was found guilty of practicing medicine without a license. Saunders, a resident at the time, told the men that he needed a certain number of ultrasounds for his training. One of the men testified that he was interested in the ultrasound because of a family history with heart problems. I'm like, you're a little far south for some heart problems.
1, recruiting someone. 2, telling them to come to your house. Like, to the residents who are listening right now, don't do that.
Attendings listening right now, don't do that.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. Our first episode since recording, since we got back in Ghana. Yo, we did one episode in Ghana. Go back and check that one out. That's the last episode. And we covered a lot of topics on that episode. And it's been like 4 weeks, babe. We haven't recorded since.
Lazy lima beans.
Yo. Guys, when I tell you...
We needed a break.
I didn't want to record, guys.
We needed a break.
My brain just... I had so much to say, but I think the really interesting thing for everybody who's listening is, like, I constantly have something to say about a lot of things that are going on. It's just that there's a lot of times where I have to govern. I have to... really rethink what I want to say and say, okay, well, listen, is this something that you guys want to listen to? And also at the same time, would I get canceled for saying it? And after a while, I was just like, look, man, like I'm working and then we're also taking care of the kids and then we're also seeing family. It was just like, I don't feel like recording. That's it. I just didn't feel like recording at all.
Yeah, it was a lot. We needed a break, I think. Having the kids.
Ready to go. You were ready to go. I just didn't want to.
No, I mean, for me, it could have gone either way. I was actually kind of fine not recording. Yeah, because I did feel like we needed a break. Having the kids with us 24/7, right? Like, usually the kids are in school or they're in camp.
Like they are right
So having them with us 24/7 definitely made me more tired than usual. You know, made me more fatigued mentally and physically than usual. But the trip was... Great. I loved it.
I was very briefly, y'all. So in August, we spent a significant amount of time doing the medical mission, and we split duties. A significant part of the time I'm there, operating, seeing patients, and then we reverse. Renee will do the same thing. I'll be
kind of like what we do at home with locums.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It started off with me running a clinic out of my apartment.
Basically, I hear a knock on the door. Tick, 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 tick. Yes? Hi, I'm here to see Dr. Renée. I'm like, okay, hold on a second.
You start to realize,
Dr. Renée.
I don't have to examine people, but yes, this actually happened 3 times.
Yes, you had 3 patients. Yeah.
This happened 3 times, so we saw people.
No, actually, you ended up... Yes, you did end up with 3 patients. Yeah, it was 3 total. Yeah.
And then we said, okay, you look okay. Can you make the trip up to Kumasi, which is 4 hours away? So I saw them, did the pre-evaluation on them from a surgical standpoint, and then, hey, go up to Kumasi and, get surgery. So that's what we do. My family's from Accra. My mom is Ewe. My dad is Ga. So we're mainly in the Accra region. And then when the team comes, we go up there to Kumasi, to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. We set up with the team, and then we're there for several weeks, operating, seeing patients. Renee, you did a bunch of COPOs, or at least you did a lot of education around COPOs. Mm-hmm. You even did a virtual presentation while you were in Accra with the kids to folks in Kumasi on what did you talk about specifically?
So... we are pushing more for education with international healthcare volunteers. We're really trying to move forward in the realm of education. And so this time around, we did essentially a copal clinic. But before we did the copal clinic, we did a series of didactics. In Ghana, you'll find that a lot of the colposcopies cervical cancer screenings actually done by midwives. And so there were quite a few midwife students there, and we presented to them on colposcopy, on cervical cancer screening, and, we just had a live audience. So we wanted to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's one thing we talked about a couple of years ago, but it's really important for us to kind of talk about it over and over again, which is, okay, you can't just go there, go to a different country, go to a place that has low resources and just go and operate, do procedures, and then get out. Like you have to think about, all right, if I go here to this place and I perform procedures, am I going to be able to do procedures that someone who's still going to remain there going to be able to take care of the complications from these procedures, right?
Right.
So I think one of that came up when we interviewed a pediatric surgeon who went to Haiti, and I think she went to some other places in Asia.
Yeah.
And I remember I was asking, I was like, okay, like there are certain procedures that you do that maybe they can't do or replicate. Like, how do you justify that? I forgot what her answer was, but that's a really serious thing to talk about. It's like, well, if you're doing cases that you do in America, but you do them in a different country, but there's nobody there to follow up on these patients and they don't have a way to get to America, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things I'm really proud of with our organization, which everybody will put in the show notes, is International Healthcare Volunteers. We really focus on sustainability. And obviously the foundation of sustainability is education.
Education.
Right?
Yeah.
Education. So doing lectures, and it's not just from us, receiving education from them, so that it's bi-directional. So they learn from us and we learn from them.
them.
Oh, yeah. So I did
Yeah.
about, go ahead. You were going to say something?
No, I was going to say, this past year, International Healthcare Volunteers announced that we are building a simulation center out in Cape Coast. So, if there are doctors out there who are interested in volunteering with the International Healthcare Volunteers, I would really urge you to do that, because again, we are an organization that is really, really serious about sustainability. It's not, it's not voluntourism, as people say, right? Where you go and you volunteer, but you're really just going to see what it's like. You just want to visit a country, which is fine if you want to do that. But if you're really into sustainability and wanting to see something through, International Healthcare Volunteers is the way to go. So Alfred will put that information on YouTube, and we'll put their information down in the show notes if you guys want to volunteer.
Yeah, so from a general surgery perspective, what did I do? So my days usually started, I was up by like 6:45. I was at the hospital by 7:15. And usually we're operating by around 8:15, 8:30. I'm going to be very honest with y'all guys. One thing that travels very well, whether it's the United States, whether it's on our mission trip, whether it's in other countries, is anesthesia, F around time. So that is one thing that
So wait,
translates to
did
every
you
country.
actually start operating at 8:15?
Sometimes even later than that.
What do you mean sometimes even later? Yeah, yes, later, much later, no?
Yeah. And then that will cause us to operate late into the night, but it is what it is. So for you anesthesiologists out there who think that, man, like if I go to another country, like, will things be different? No, everything will be the same, right?
Anesthesia is the rate limiting step.
Oh my goodness, man. Damn. But we did everything.
Like, can we get the patient in the room?
We did everything from hernias. So we talk about ventral hernias, right? We're talking about hernias that people, like particularly with women, a lot of the ventral hernias that we're seeing are women who've had phalansteal incisions from C-sections. And then we're also seeing just ventral hernias, like umbilical hernias or like Swiss cheese type ventral hernias. And then we see the normal like inguinal hernias, right? And then they have like regular hernias that you see in the United States. Then they have what we call Ghana hernias, which are the hernias that are like all the way down to like literally their thigh.
Yeah,
So we're doing those. Yeah. Then we did a couple of thyroids. Now the thyroid surgeries, I'll be honest with y'all, we have a theme, and we've been doing this since I've got there. I haven't seen anything different. Whatever we do in the United States, we don't do. Excuse me. What we don't do in the United States, we don't do in Ghana, right? So me as a trauma surgeon, acute care general surgeon, I don't do thyroids. I did that in residency, maybe once or twice as an attending, but I don't do that as part of my practice. So the thyroids are usually done with, we assist the local surgeons there. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. The local surgeons there are cold. They are really good. They can operate them. I'd leave it to you like this. They're probably better trained than we are. They just don't, some of them, a lot of them just don't have the access to the technology that we have. But in terms of like raw operating surgical skill, they're great. Because like they're here in the United States, the big thing is, okay, well, like, yeah, like I don't do thyroids because there's somebody who's specially trained to do thyroids, or there's someone who does, the adrenals. So they're really good at doing adrenals. They have specialization even in general surgery, but it's really few and far between. So if you nick something and you have a vascular injury, like that's on you. If you have a urologic emergency, that's on you. Like there's nobody who's going to come and save the day and be like, hey, like, can you come in the next 15 minutes? I'm going to hold my finger on this. They're like,
Fix it.
fix it. So these surgeons, they are very well trained. And like I said in the beginning, I learn a lot from them. One thing that we didn't bring mesh. So my partner, Dr. Kennard, he went and purchased mesh in Ghana, and then we sparingly used it during cases, particularly for the larger hernias, right? The inguinal hernias that were like the Ghana hernias, and then like the ventral hernias, we used that also. And then for the others, we just did a, suture repair. And then one thing we didn't anticipate, I don't know what was in the fufu. I don't know what was in the shito. I don't know what was in the gari. I don't know what was in the light soup and the fufu. I don't know what was in the komi. I don't know what was in any of that stuff, but appendicitis was like rampant during this time. We did the amount of appendixes we did compared to the appendixes the appendixes that we did this month were way more than the total amount of appendixes that I've done over the last 10 years. It was crazy.
Okay, Nee.
I think probably in Ghana, realistically, seriously, in Ghana, like not in overall, but I'm talking about in Ghana, like the appendixes that we did over the past 10 years, I probably did like 3.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this month we did like close to 15, which is highly like abnormal. Every day.
Yeah, that's unusual. Yeah.
Every day there was at least 2 or 3 students who came in saying that they have appendicitis. And you would go in there and it's like perforated, or, the appendix
like it's real.
Inflamed. It's real appendicitis.
But I want to say something. So it's funny.
What you want to say to me?
First of all, let me just back up a little bit, because you did talk about doing the clinic outside of our apartment. And I just want people to know that we are not like that resident who was doing ultrasounds.
What happened?
You didn't hear about this?
No.
The resident who was doing ultrasounds on men, he was doing ultrasounds on their genitals in his apartment.
I beg your pardon?
Oh my God. Yes.
Here in the United States?
In the United States, yeah. It was a resident. He was having men come to his apartment, and he was doing ultrasounds on their testicles.
This sounds nefarious. Ultrasound?
So we were not doing that.
For what reason?
We were not doing that. So I want to go back. I just wanted to go back so that people understood exactly what was happening there.
Hold on a second.
Hold on. And to say that one of the docs who is also on the mission trip was made aware that this gentleman was, in a lot of pain, and she didn't know whether or not he needed surgery. So she asked you to evaluate him so that he could know if he should take the 4-hour trip to Kumasi in order to get his surgery. So
why you got to clarify that for?
No, I need to clarify. Otherwise, people are going to be like, oh, I see what's going on over there.
All right, let's get back to this. Let's get back to this resident.
So
sounds on test.
That's one.
Please.
But number two is that, So over the last couple of years, because you talked about having, appendicitis or people having appendicitis, it's true though. Like every year, or I should say almost every year, we meet somebody who has appendicitis. So one of the surgeons that you operate with, remember the first year that we met him, he had appendicitis. Remember?
Yes. Yes.
And then I think that either that same year or the following year, I don't know if you remember Ganza. Remember Ganza?
Yeah.
Remember he was a house officer.
We treated him with oral antibiotics, right?
He treated himself with oral antibiotics, and we kept telling him, Ganza, you cannot keep taking oral antibiotics. If you keep flaring up, you have to have surgery. But he also had appendicitis. So I'm like, what is going on that all these people around us are having appendicitis?
Yeah. Okay, so you've stalled enough. Let's talk about this guy doing ultrasounds on testicles.
Yeah. You didn't hear about that? In his apartment. So he's an ex-UC health doctor guilty for genital ultrasounds in his apartment. Rudell Saunders was found guilty of practicing medicine without a license. Yeah.
But why was he doing ultrasounds?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So he was found guilty of felony charges, and that was released. That was the decision that came down August 5th.
Hold on. He's a radiologist, or what was he?
No, I don't know what kind of resident he is. I'm not sure what kind of resident he is, what residency he was in.
Yo, this is highly abnormal. And
I think he's a resident. Was he a resident? Yeah. Saunders, a resident at the time, told the men that he needed a certain number of ultrasounds for his training. One of the men testified that he was interested in the ultrasound because of a family history with heart problems. I'm like,
yo.
I'm like, you're a little far south for some heart problems.
Where was he finding these people from?
So this is let's see, a doctor who teaches at the University of Cincinnati's medical school testified that the school did not require a certain number of ultrasounds for the credentialing procedure. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure. Yeah. I'm not quite sure.
See, I like this. When did this come out?
This came out in August.
The fact that he was found guilty, so this has been going on for at least.
Oh yeah, this has been going on for several months. Yes.
Yo, you gotta. Yo, I gotta read about this. You gotta let me know about this because this is one, recruiting someone. Two, telling them to come to your house. Like. Three, what did you say afterwards? What's the follow up? Four, did you get money from them?
I'm not sure. I think was he a resident? Or you know what? I'm not sure. We'll have to delve a little bit deeper into this on another episode. But
residents who are listening right now, don't do that.
don't do that.
Don't do that, please.
Attendings listening right now, don't do that. Like, don't.
That's what he called it. I
don't.
Yeah.
Unless you have your practice set up and everything.
Where did it occur?
This is University of Cincinnati, so I'm assuming it was somewhere in Cincinnati.
I like that though, because I like what he did, but I didn't have that on my radar at all. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. See, gotta be careful what you saying out here. Remember, you the one said that you were afraid of being canceled.
Well, yeah. I mean, so let me just clarify, guys. Like, the patient was already pre-screened. The doctor sent them to my place to say, "Hey, can this person take the trip, or should they take the trip up?"
Right. Right.
Went up there, and then we operated.
He did get his surgery. He got his surgery in a medical facility. So I just wanted to make that clear. We're not out in Ghana just randomly picking people. So
okay.
Yeah. So as for my own experience, I only went for about 3-4 days. So you went a little bit longer than me. I actually only really went for 3 days. But when I got there was a continuation of the Copal clinic that we had started. And so I got to see a couple of patients from there. There weren't as many patients as we would have liked to have seen. Again, that's, kind of logistical and resource kind of those things come into play. But what was nice about that time was that even though we didn't have that many patients, we did have the resident as well as two house officers who I worked with a little bit more closely. So I was able to give them kind of education on colposcopy, what the colposcopy is for, what you're looking for, doing the screening, when to take a biopsy, when not to take a biopsy, what happens after you get the results from the biopsy. So that was really, really good. We ended up using a really, I guess, highly digitalized camera colposcopy, which is, I guess it was donated by someone at some point. So it wasn't equipment that we actually had come with. The problem was that there just wasn't enough resource in order for the residents and the house officers to be trained on it. So we contributed to their training on it. And then I did 3 open cases. And one was a lot of fibroids. So I did a myomectomy. And thank goodness for my training because, man, let me tell you, she had a lot of fibroids, a whole lot of fibroids. And I think that, in the United States, a lot of people would have taken her uterus. A lot of people would not have taken the time to do the myomectomy. So we did the myomectomy. She had very little blood loss, thankfully. And it was a really good case. It was a really good case. So it's, I did the myomectomy because I was trying to give her a chance. She's 36 years old and she never conceived. So I was just trying to give her a chance to be able to have a baby. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens. Hopefully in a year, you get some good news from her. So
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I do want to mention. So in the evening time, we would go back to, there's a dorm or like a hostel that we would stay at, and we would eat dinner there. And that was the time where we would just talk. It's me, another surgeon. There's OB there. There's an OB fellow there. OB onco. What is it? Gynonc fellow that was with us. We had a pediatrician that was with us. We had a nurse practitioner that was with us. Our team is very diverse. And like during those times, we would just go and eat dinner, and we'd eat and have fun and talk and stuff. And one thing that I noticed that I do is, particularly for the residents who are leaving, or people who are just about to become attendings, one of them was asking me like advice as to like what they should do when they first start working and stuff. And like, I don't know why, but I just didn't feel like talking about like the financial stuff. But I was really kind of talking about like, okay, when you first get to a hospital, like you got to be really careful about the politics, because small town politics versus large city politics are really different, right? Like people think like the smaller the town, the easier it is. And I'm like, slow down. No, actually, the smaller the town, the worse the politics. And
at least the more exposed you can be.
The more, they can do a lot of things to you. I've seen people get really bad consequences from like not learning how to read the room, not understanding the geopolitical stuff that's going on in the hospital. You coming in as a new hot shot, X, Y, and Z, and people in these small towns like, this is their bread and butter, right?
Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody. You got to be careful what you say and so forth. And then one thing that we were talking about also was like training, right? Like somebody had asked me like, man, like, do you think that surgery training should be longer? Like general surgery training should be longer than 5 years. And I was like, that's a really good question. It's a really good question. I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but I do think that one of the things that we struggle with general surgery training is, okay, you have an 80-hour work week, right? Are we getting enough training? Are the residents getting enough training and also at the same time abiding by a work week? You know my thoughts already, and I know me and you differ just a little bit, but I understand.
I actually don't know your thoughts on that.
Well, so we both agree that this is you're because you're in an academic situation, right? Whether you're at a community-based hospital or you're at at a large hospital, it's an educational experience. Even though you're a PGY1, postgraduate person, right? The training is just what it is. It's training, it's education. But I feel like making them focus on or really adhering to an 80-hour work week, you're not really preparing them for the real world, because the real world, there is no 80-hour work week, right? You just work, right? It's like, being a pilot. It's, like they train, and then when they go and they work, there are strict work hours for them
Right.
when they work, when they're done training and so forth. That doesn't exist in medicine, right? But I think you are of the standpoint of, well, if they're in training, then yeah, there should be restrictions on how long and how often they're training, how many hours they're working for, and so forth. I just feel like, I'm like, well, I get it, but you put them out there in the field, and it's like, well, sorry, sis, but
Well,
there's no 80-hour work week here. So
so
that's hold on, let me finish my
yeah,
point.
go ahead. Go ahead.
So that's one thing that I brought up. I was like, well, the amount of cases, the amount of exposure, the variety of things that you see, that's really limited, right? Because if your shift ends, during the day shift at 4 o'clock, or 5 o'clock, or 6 o'clock, and all of these great cases come in at nighttime, the old school way is you lived at the hospital, hence why it was called residency. You resided at the
Right.
damn hospital. So there's a whole bunch of a whole bunch of cases that you would be normally doing are gone. And I'm not just saying that from a get off a lawn standpoint. I was also a product of the 8-hour work week. But I remember, like, yeah, I would do a day shift, and then I come back the next morning. It's like, yo, you missed this case, you missed this X-lap, you missed this gunshot wound. You're like, damn, man, I missed all this stuff. But then, I said, well, there's a lot of my attendings who, they brag about like the stuff that they were able to get away with when they were in training in the 70s and the 80s. And I'm like, well, probably a lot of the reason why we have a lot of these regulations is because y'all messed it up, Like, I remember a lot of my attendings they would brag about how they would go to the VA, and they were doing like these crazy cases as chief residents by themselves, like, like esophagectomies. And I'm like, yo, like, this is a big deal. These cases, like, you're removing someone's esophagus, right? And you're reconnecting because it's cancer and so forth. To be doing that without an actual attending, to be doing that as a chief resident, I think it's nuts, right? And it's no wonder you're seeing a lot of these complications.
Could be experimental.
So a lot of stuff that was happening, particularly at the VAs and so forth, in their 70s and 80s, maybe even in the early 90s. And, these attendings saying, oh, yeah, it was just me as a chief or as a third year doing X, Y, and Z, all these major things. It's like you telling yourself, I don't know if that was the right thing to be doing, So,
Yeah.
the pendulum has swung, I don't know if it's 180 degrees, but I do think that we're at a point where we got to think about, particularly for general surgery, like, we're going to have to change the way how we train folks a little bit. They
Well,
didn't want to hear that answer. So
I'm sure they didn't want to hear that answer. So I mean, listen, I do think that there needs to be some sort of protection for learners. And you're absolutely right. Like, you don't have the protection of the 80-hour work week. But let's also talk about the environment that you are going to be working in as an attending versus what you're going to be working, how you work as a resident, right? So let's just take night shift, for example, because it really is all about the call, right? It's not about the shift, right? It's not about the day shift, right? Because usually on day shift, right? Usually on day shift, you are in charge of a service, right? You're in charge of a service. So if you're on ICU, you're probably not on general surgery. If you're on trauma, you're probably not in clinic, right? You're probably not doing all these things. As an OB resident, right? If I'm, day shift, and if I'm on OB, I'm not on gynonc. If I'm on OB, I'm not on antepartum, right? Like, I am on that service. But night shift, that's where things change.
Why don't you just say after bath?
No. On night shift or on night call, however your residency does it, okay? When you are on call at night, you are over all of the services, right? So your team, you have a smaller team that is now taking care of all of the services. At least that's how it was in my residency.
That's how it was in my residency. I think that's how it is everywhere, man.
Right. I think that's how it is everywhere, right?
Okay.
Exactly. Nobody has, oh, you have the night shift OB and the night shift GYN onc and the night. That's not how that happens. It's like, it's three of us and we take care of OB, antepartum, gyne onc, gyne, ER, everything.
The best at night is
what?
The super subspecialty surgeries like opto, derm, and plastics. I don't know how it was at your place. But at my place, it was an intern or a second year would cover like plastics, opto, and like, I forgot what was the other one I mentioned? Plastics.
Derm.
And no, not derm. Derm didn't have anybody in-house.
Exactly.
Opto, and I forgot who, but either way, it's like people would come into the hospital like, yeah, I need a plastic surgeon. It's like, okay. An intern comes in. And it's like, yeah, I'm covering all of these services, like what you need. Like, yeah, they want a plastic surgeon to fix this. It's like, all right, now you got an intern fixing it. But go ahead.
Boo.
So you're going to coalescence of services.
Right. So you get a coalescence of services. The thing is, as an attending, I'm never covering gyne-onc. Right? If I'm covering the ER, it's like, yeah, but for the most part, the ER docs, right, are expected to do a lot of the triaging. Right.
Okay.
And, I'm not covering the same number of services, right, for the most part that I would be covering, or the same number of patients that I would be covering, when I was in residency. As an attending, I'm just not. Right. So my OB service alone as a resident, I mean, you can have 20 patients, on the ward. It's like, that's a lot of people, the onc service. Huh?
That's a lot for OB?
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the OB service. I'm just talking about people who delivered, right? Like, that's all I'm talking about. I'm not even talking about the people who are delivering, who are laboring, right? Gotcha. I'm not even talking about the people who are on antepartum, people who are pregnant, who are not ready to have their babies for potentially days or weeks from now, right? Like, okay. So I'm just talking about, really, I should say postpartum, right? So people who have delivered, right? That's the postpartum service, right? And then you have the people who are actually laboring. So that could be like 4 or 5 more people laboring as you walk in the door, but it certainly could be more as the day goes on. Then you have your antepartum service, which could have another 10, 12 people. Then you have, so you're covering a lot of people. But my point is that, right, as residents, okay, you're covering a lot. Right? You are covering a lot of people. You're seeing a lot of patients, but you are also expected to study. As an attending, you're not expected to study. You're just not expected to. Now, you want to go and you want to read a little article here and there. You got to do your mock and all of that. That's great. But you are not expected to study and then show up and be pimped by somebody, or to then have to take an in-service exam, or to be evaluated, for the knowledge that you had on this particular month. You are not expected to perform academically as an attending. And so I think that's the difference, right? And so even for those attendings who are like, no, but I work at an academic center, I'm like, yeah, but you still don't have the same burden of being evaluated in the same way that residents do, right? And you have your residents doing most of the work. You're probably not doing half the documentation that you would be doing as an attending if you didn't have your residents there, which is why attendings get pissed off on graduation day when they have to be the ones who are on call, because they're like, who's going to do all the documentation? Well, I say all that to say
most of the medical care is probably not at academic centers, though. Right.
Right.
Most of the time, most of the things are at either community hospitals or suburban hospitals, places that may, if they have residents, it's a small amount. But I get what you're saying. I think you make really good points. It's just, I don't know what the answer to all this stuff is. So I don't know.
Well,
but
I think, you'll learn as
wanted to talk about that. Yeah.
I think when you graduate, herein lies the problem. You know me. I think I've told this story on the podcast before, is that when I graduated from residency, right, I had done a ton of C-sections. So I knew how to do C-sections, but you never feel ready to do it by yourself. You just don't. right? Which is why I went straight panic the first time I had to do a C-section by myself. I was like, oh my God. And you were like, what's wrong with you? You haven't done C-sections? Like, I'm like, no, I've done plenty of C-sections. You're like, so what's the issue? I'm like, I don't know. I was just panicked that for the first time, I didn't have an attending standing in the corner or standing across from me, basically just telling me, yeah, you're doing a good job, right? I had to be that person to do that. And so I think every resident probably goes through that. When they get to the finish line, they feel like, I'm not ready. I don't know enough. Maybe if I did like 5 more, and it's like, listen, this is why it's called medical practice, because this is what we do. And we are going to encounter things that we never encountered before. No matter how much time we spend in residency, there are going to be things that we never encounter until the 15th year of practice. I mean, you can't stay in residency 15 years before you go and encounter that thing. Sorry.
I'll tell you right now.
You're never going to feel prepared.
There are times when I stay a little bit extra because I need to see some cases that I haven't done in a long time, because it's just part of my medical practice. I need to know how to do these things. And
that's practice.
Skills, whether it's colonoscopy, EGDs, or even doing some type of colon resection. I'm like, okay, I just got to make sure I'm staying on top of that. That's just the way how medical practice works. It's a very interesting thing to think about, where, most other places, they keep track of your hours, whatever it may be. Not so much in medicine afterwards.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a bad thing, but
I think
we're not going to answer that question.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be
I think we're not going to answer that question. Yeah. So, but I also think it's not about the hours. I think it's not, or I should say, it's not just about the hours. It's also about the environment and the other responsibilities that residents are essentially supposed to be doing, right? They have other responsibilities that attendings don't have. So you just want to move on. That's what you want to do.
All right, Dr. Renée. So we got a question from Instagram. This is a question from someone who's been following our podcast for a significant period of time. So let's jump right into this. It says, hey, do both you and your wife do locums? Because I'm considering a travel position / locum, but I'm having mom guilt and I'm not sure how other women do it. I've read articles and I know there's plenty of moms who do it, but just wondering if you have any feedback. Would appreciate hearing about your experience. I know I've heard a lot from your perspective, but wondering about it from mom's perspective, how she may do it. I think they're referring to you. So we got this question while we're in Ghana. I told them we were going to answer it, but we ain't recording Ghana. So,
so we ain't answer it.
You like to hear it? Here it go. Boom. So you go ahead and answer. Do we do locums? How do you do locums as a mom? And do you have mommy guilt?
No, I do not have mommy guilt. So I've been doing locums for quite some time, exclusively locums, as of the time, that was 2016. So I was pregnant at the time when we started doing locums exclusively. And, yeah, I mean, I guess I would need a little bit more information so that I could give you a little more advice tailored to whatever your situation is. For me, I am a mom, but I'm also married. So there is that dynamic, which I think makes a difference. So doing locums, I'm able to stay home for the most part. And then I work 1 weekend a month. That's just how I decide to do it. You can do it however you want. And then my husband, he works more days than I do in the month, but that's the way that we do it. We switch off. So if I'm working, he's not working. If he's working, then I'm not working. And that's the way it's worked. And I really love it. It allows me to spend a lot of time with my kids. Yes, I am traveling, so it is not a local locums assignment. I've been traveling since 2016. And haven't stopped since. And it's been really helpful.
What's the farthest that you've traveled?
The farthest I've traveled is probably about 3 hours, 4 hours. To do anyone
right now.
Now it's like an hour and a half. Yeah, now it's like an hour and a half. So it's not bad. But I stay over.
So what does that mean? Explain that to the people.
So that basically means that I start my shift on Friday evenings at 5:00 and I finish my shift on Monday mornings at 7:30. So I am not home. So I might as well be a plane ride away, right? Because I'm not home, right?
Your
So,
husband, you got a hotel, you got all that stuff. Gotcha.
you and your work husband, X, Y, and Z. I told you, don't make me pull up on you. Ah! Okay. Don't make me pull up on you. I know you got a work wife.
Yeah, my work wife got hands. Just know. So you gonna pull up. Go ahead.
Anywho, niece. Don't worry, because my work husband got mad muscle. Yeah, look at your face. Look at your face now. You don't like that joke, right? It's not as funny. It's not, what is it? Ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. Anywho, but you can do it however.
That's peace.
You can do it however you want. I think what I like about the locums life the most is that there is that flexibility, right? I think I actually have. So I will say this. I never worked a 9 to 5 or what we call a full-time
Well, how about this?
job. Hold on. I got to say this.
I got to say this. I got something to say.
I've never worked a full-time job while I was a mother, right? But I do have to say that I think that the amount of guilt, mommy guilt, that I would have had as a full-time OB would have been much, much greater than what I'm doing now as a locums. Because her question is about mommy guilt.
Hold on a second. Let me speak up. Yeah. So the mommy guilt that you have, you said that you would have more mommy guilt if you were working full time and not a locum, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, explain that. What kind of things
Because
would you be thinking about? Let me get it out. What kind of things would you have? Would you be processing in your mind during that time?
Because if I'm full-time OB, right? When I was full-time OB, if I'm looking at that schedule, right? If I had been a mom at that time, there would have been a point where I would have been awake before my kids even got up in the morning and back home after my kids fell asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that because for me, I might as well be away because I'm not seeing them anyway. Right. I just know that they are there and in the same house with me at some point in time, a few hours a day. But I don't like the idea of, consistently waking up before my kids, not seeing them off to school, and then coming home and potentially them being asleep already. I don't like
think
that.
The one thing to consider also is I didn't have any plans of slowing down at all at that point also. Mm-hmm. So there's a strong likelihood that you have that happening twice, where you have kids who are very the likelihood of them seeing both of their parents in the morning or seeing them in the evening time, it's going to be varied, right? Mm-hmm. The consistency probably won't be there and stuff. So there was a high chance also that we may have to incorporate someone in, like a babysitter or nanny. What are your thoughts on that?
So for me, I just felt like I didn't want a nanny. There's nothing wrong with having a nanny, but I didn't want a nanny in that, not for that, right? If I was going to have somebody help me with my kids, that's fine, but I would want someone who is just kind of there literally helping me, right? Not someone being me, right? I think helping. So, for example, right, there was a point at which we did have a babysitter, right? We had a babysitter. She would come to the house, even though I was home. She was helping me, right? Because I had 2 kids, one of which I was homeschooling, and the other one who needed just extra attention because he had speech delay and all of this stuff. So she was actually helping me. So I was able to put my attention towards the homeschooling for those hours that I was homeschooling, but I was never so far removed that I wasn't able to give the other one the attention that he needed as well. So she was able to help me kind of reel him in and just, make sure that, he's not necessarily interfering with the homeschooling with the other one and, keeping him entertained, making sure that he's getting his, all of the things that he needed from therapy. That was helping me. That wasn't being me, right? She wasn't being the mom. She was being the helper. And so that for me was important to have that. I didn't want to have my kids woken up by someone else, carted around, taken to school, carted around to the extracurricular activities by someone else. And then me at the end of the day go, well, how was your day? What'd you do all day? And not have been a part of that. I just didn't want that as my life, So
Okay.
for me, I think I would have had more mommy guilt if our life looked that way than what it looks like right now, which is, listen, I'm gone for a weekend. You'll be fine, because most days out of the month, I'm actually home. So I don't have any guilt over that.
Hot dogs and beans when you gone.
Whatever. It's okay. They can eat. They can eat a weekend. A weekend of junk food is not gonna kill nobody.
As long as they don't
So
end up in the hospital, they are good.
they are good, as long as they don't have appendicitis and end up in Kumasi.
What are you talking about? Come on now.
That's
Come on now.
that's the appendicitis combination.
Was it beans and what?
I don't know, but Kumasi is definitely in there. So, but yeah, that I think.
Okay, so back to her question. Back to her
Yes.
question. So I know a little bit about her experiences. And now the kids, I think at this point now are like, they're in that 5 range, 6 range, 7-year-old range and stuff. Like how long can you say mommy guilt and all that stuff? How long can you use all that stuff? Like, is there like, I mean, this is not, I'm being devil's advocate and I'm playing a little bit, but after a while, isn't there like, come on now, listen, like, you gotta get back to work, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, isn't there thoughts about that?
You want to make that money? He's like,
Yo,
listen,
get back to work, yo. Come on, yo.
listen. You just want to put this ox out. You want to put this ox out so she could plow. That's what
Does it
you
get
want.
worse? Does it get better as they get older? Like, because the kids are older now.
The kids are older now.
Relatively
Yes.
now. But do
Yes.
you, like, let's say, for example, would you consider taking on more hours?
So with my kids being 6 and 8, potentially, yeah, right? Like now that they're 6 and 8, they're in school full time, right? That's a little bit of a different story. But even then, I would want to make sure that my schedule isn't so overburdened with work that I'm not missing so much. Like today, for example, I volunteered for their picture day, right? To kind of help, keep the kids preoccupied after their pictures were taken, right?
Better look good.
Let me tell you something. Your son, listen, that class picture, he was sitting there like this.
Look on point.
He was going like this.
Look on point. So.
I'm like, come on, boy, stop. He's like this. This is how his class picture looks. His individual picture looks good, but his class picture, he looks like this. So, you got to see it on YouTube to see what I'm doing if y'all are listening. But so yeah, I'm able to volunteer for that. Tomorrow, I'm going to be volunteering for our other son's picture day. So I want to be able to do things like that. I need that flexibility. And if I'm going to take a job, I want a job that's going to give me that flexibility that, hey, listen, from 9:25 to 9:40, I got to go to my son's school and volunteer because he's going to be looking crazy in these pictures if I don't.
What do you think about folks who like women who, like, for example, like when you are in like a practice, right?
Okay.
Like where you're in a practice and because there's pressure, right? Let's say you're in practice with other men, whatever specialty it may be, and you're just getting out of residency or you're just getting out of training, or maybe you're practicing for a while and then all of a sudden you get pregnant and then you have to deliver. And during those, that time, the maternity leave, usually 12 weeks? Like everybody's changing their schedule and all these different things. Everybody says, yeah, we got you and so forth. And it's the law, right? Like they got to give you that time and so forth. Did you talk about that pressure to come back early sometimes to make sure that you feel like, hey, you don't want to lose your skills, or maybe you don't want people talking behind your back, or is that a real thing still? What are your thoughts on that?
I cannot speak on that because that was not my experience. I really can't.
What was your experience?
I quit right before I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I never went back, right? I never went back to being employed. I can't really speak to that. But I'm going to say that yes, there are a lot of women who feel that pressure, right, to perform because they have a goal in mind, right? They also have the pressure of feeling like they want to be collegial, they want to be professional. And so work doesn't always give you that grace of being a mother while you're also trying to reach that, that professional goal. And so I would imagine that, yeah, there's a lot of pressure where, you take time off, people are taking on your patients because when you leave behind patients, right? And those patients don't just disappear. Those patients continue to have problems and need to be seen. They might need to be operated on. Their treatments might need to be, advanced. So, there's a lot of pressure, I think, on those women in particular when they get pregnant to be like, oh, maybe I should go back to work because everybody else is filling in for me and I'm not holding my weight. So I can't really speak to that because I didn't have that experience. So I can't just be like, oh, just forget everybody, just focus on yourself and whatever, right? It would be really, it would be irresponsible of me to say that.
You
So
work in an ecosystem. You work in an ecosystem, so to speak.
yeah,
And the ecosystem has ebbs and flows. So that's a tough one.
yeah, it's tough. And then you have the pressure of, speaking of 12 weeks, 12 weeks is 3 months.
It's not.
Think about it. It's not long. Like a 3-month-old.
It didn't click to me until we had a 12-month-old or a 12-week-old.
12-week-old.
And I remember I asked you, I was like, wait, so we supposed to just hand this baby over to somebody?
Yes, I remember you. And I was like, yep, go take him to the daycare and see what happened.
12 weeks.
Exactly. 12 weeks. A 12-week-old baby. That's a 3-month-old baby. Like, that's nothing. Right? So then now you feel like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to go back to work. So now you feel like your life that you're building at home, this family that you're building at home, is literally in direct competition with your professional aspirations. And that should never be, right? That should never be. They should be working in tandem. That should never be.
That's a perfect world. That's a perfect world.
Right. That's a perfect world. Or that's locums.
And I think, well, no, to some extent, but I think the thing that we have to realize and let people know that there's sacrifice.
At least for me, it is.
There's sacrifice to everything.
Of course.
Right. I'm speaking from the male perspective, but also at the same time, I watch what you're doing. And I think just a true unbiased view is there's sacrifices, right? Like things that you have to just say, you can't have everything, right? You can't have the perfect practice. You can't make all the amount of money. And then you can't also expect to be there for your kids, right? Like this stuff is work, right? Like if you want to be there for your kids, then there's going to have to be times when you have to say no to your job. If there are things that you want to do career-wise, then there's times when you have to say no to your family. Like there's just times where you just have to make it work in some form or fashion.
Right.
Realize that you don't have to be perfect. But I definitely sometimes look at, I'm like, man, like if you were working, full time, like we're leaving a lot of money on the table, but that's not where we don't value that right now.
That's not where exactly.
Right now we value, one, our relationship, two, making sure that the kids grow up in a very healthy relationship, and three, that they have the opportunities to do things that we never had. But the bill's gonna come when we get into our 60s and 70s because they're gonna be taking care of us. Remember all that? Remember that 529s I've been, right? Those 529s that we were funding.
Anywho,
preschool and all that. Like, yo, you gonna have to pay us back for that, for real.
Okay, Nee, be quiet.
That's how I look at it. It's the truth.
Whatever, Nee. Now you potting.
I'm not potting. I'm just saying.
Yes, you are. Now you potting.
The bill's coming.
Yeah, you're going to bill our children.
Oh, my dad's going to pay for college, and then they may pay for even grad school. It's like, okay. Sure. Then 70 comes, 75 comes. Dad can't change his underwear anymore. Where you coming? Come help me out. You remember that? Remember those Jordans? We got you.
Anyway, Nee, I'm through with you. I am through with you. I'm done with you right now. I'm so done. Anywho.
No, but seriously, to the listener, to the writer who wrote this question, this is a really good question. And thank you, Renee, for answering that with your candor, because I think, one thing that I want folks to really understand is that it's going to look different to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mom guilt, dad guilt. Dad guilt is a thing, guys.
Yeah.
Ladies, dad guilt is a thing. It's not as prominent. We don't talk about it as much. There's not as much space to talk about that. But there are times when I'm gone and I'm thinking about it, like, man, like I'm missing out taking them to, at least I want to be able to put them to bed every day, or at least be able to take them to school, right? There's got to be one thing. But when I'm gone for like a week. So I can't do any of those things, right? I want to be able to help them with their homework and so forth. And there's times where I'm like, man, all of this stuff accumulates, and is it accumulating into a bad thing, or is it, going to end up being really for the cause, so to speak, like the sacrifices that I'm making and stuff. But it's you don't have all the answers. You do the best that
Mm-hmm.
you can, and I think we kind of just go from there. But we do appreciate your answer, or excuse me,
Yeah.
your question on this, Renee. I appreciate your answer. This is a really good one. I think we should actually leave it here. There's
You
something
want
that
to
I
leave it
wanted
here?
to speak about. Yeah, there was things I wanted to talk about with doctors and the whole notion that we've seen on social media about doctors wanting to keep people sick, which makes no sense. Let's answer it on another podcast. Let's answer it on
Yeah.
another podcast. But anybody who wants to know where I think about it very quickly, it's just like you guys really think doctors have way more power than we really do, right? It's like that scene from Malcolm X where the police officer is like, no man should have all that power. It's just like
That's too much power for one man to have.
you really think doctors have that much power to keep people sick? Like we don't do that. But anyway, we'll talk about that in another episode. But we do appreciate you guys listening. We do appreciate you guys writing in. We got a lot of questions that people have written in that we got to answer. And I also appreciate everybody for being patient with us. Like for real, like we talked about in the beginning, once we get to next year, 2026, it'll be close to 10 years that we've been consistently doing this show. This show is for you guys. This show is about two doctors who are kind of who have figured out how to take care of their debt, who have figured out how to handle relationships, kids, as well as business and entrepreneurship, right? Like you've seen us, if you've been listening from 2016, you've seen us grow into so many different directions and stuff. So just needed a break, and there are times when we just needed to rest and I just didn't feel like talking. And this was what happened this past month. So I appreciate y'all for listening again to this show. We really appreciate all of you all. I appreciate the whole team, from Alfred all the way to the rest of the team, Audrey, as well as Kiara, and then the help, Renee, they're
The help.
the help, Dr. Renee,
They wrote a movie about it.
Anyway. All right, guys, we're going to catch you guys on the next episode of Docs Outside the Box. Talk to you guys later.
Deuces.